That'd be great. Okay, I'll add you to the list.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm sorry you didn't get to share last week. Give me a heads up if anybody needs to leave early. Give me a heads up, and I'll make sure you get a chance to share earlier rather than later.
Oh,
We'll wait just a couple more minutes here
yeah.
so everybody else can join us.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, Alfredo Justo has put, I don't know, several hundred mushrooms on iNaturalist, naturally all from New Brunswick, but there might be something somebody's interested in.
And how do you spell his last name, Virginia?
Justo.
And I gather he's a competent mushroom hunter.
Oh, definitely.
And he posted things. Are these on iNaturalist? or Mushroom- iNaturalist.
An iNaturalist.
Okay. Have to check him out.
He's from the New Brunswick Museum.
Aha. Cool.
As in New Brunswick, Canada?
Yes, yeah, right. Not New
Okay.
Jersey.
All right. That's more interesting. Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. New Brunswick, New Jersey can be interesting.
Some might say, I guess.
Mhm.
Has anyone been keeping up with what's going on in California? All those new species no one's ever seen before?
No.
Well, apparently because of all the rain they've been getting, all the mushroom heads out there have been going out in droves to the mountain areas, and they're finding these species of mushrooms that are not only never been seen before in that region, like so many of them are completely new species, apparently.
Cool.
I guess they're just waiting underground for the right conditions to start sprouting.
Like here last year.
Mm-hmm.
2021. Yeah.
Oh, right. Time flies, Lila. I'm getting old.
Aren't we all?
Well, you know, I heard an interview with somebody on the radio. She says, now that I'm aged, I need to focus on old people's issues. She was born a year before I was. 1953. So
Wow.
aged is 69.
No. No way.
Yeah, yeah. As my wife put it, 90 is aged.
Well, I don't know. I know a couple of women who are 90, and they're in my exercise group or my other, Scrabble group, and then have all kinds of activities, and they don't act aged, not one bit.
They're pretty vigorous, huh?
Yes.
So maybe aged is a state of mind.
State of mind, right?
So it's about 7:06. This is Taxonomy Tuesdays. I'm your host for the week, Mike Inskeep. We have a common interest in identifying and sharing fleshy fungi that we have found. This week, our particular focus is WaxCaps. Next week, we're going to focus on our finds in February. So if you have any things you found in the past week or two, save them for next week, and we'll share them then. If you have observations on wax caps that you'd like to share, put your name in the chat and I'll add you to the list. I also already have Evan, Lila, and Dave. If you have an observations to share and you need to duck out early for one reason or another, please alert me ahead of time and I'll move you up sooner rather than later. So with that, I'll start with Evan, Lila, and then Dave. So Evan, are you ready to share?
Sure thing.
Okay, great. Go for it. Okay, we can see your screen.
It's what I believe have here is Schizophiloma commune or split gill mushrooms. As you see here, they just started coming out. Got an underside photo right here.
So are you going to be with us next week, Evan?
I hope so.
So why don't you save these for next week? And we'll include that in our February finds.
All right.
But that's great that you found those here in the middle of winter.
Oh,
All our
yeah, I was surprised
flowers
too.
are starting to bloom here around Philadelphia. So I don't know if this really counts as winter anymore.
It's weird weather right now.
Yeah. So Lila, do you have wax caps to share with us?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Share your screen.
All right, I gotta get them going up here. Hang on.
Okay. And then you're up next, Dave.
All right, I got one up.
Aha.
So I don't know if I have this ID right or not, but this was found last year during the Victor Gambino foray. So I think it's a Cupophilus, maybe Pratensis, kind of old, a little bit old. It's obviously not a young specimen. The gills look waxy to me. I can't remember any details about it at this point, but has the attached gills. They're fairly broadly spaced. The cap itself is kind of this orangey color. I don't know. Dave may know better.
What I'd call it. It's sort of this tannish orangish color and subdecurrent to decurrent gills, broadly attached to the decurrent. Waxy feel, widely spaced gills, pretty broad gills. Yeah, this might be a species group, Pratensis. It probably is, but good enough name for me. That's what I'd call it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't get very far with microscopy on a lot of these wax caps because they all have like ellipsoid spores that are kind of pinched in the middle sometimes, and they're almost all like 7 to 10 microns long, and I haven't found much to go on the gills, but maybe I just need a better microscope to see the details better. But yeah, that's what I'd call it, just from looking at it.
Kadoke.
But did you find it in the woods?
Yeah, we were in the woods.
Because I don't know anything about this species, but pretensis means from the meadows.
Yes, its common name is the meadow waxcap. And I found it in grassy areas and I found it in the woods. And perhaps this is possibly because it is a species complex. But they pretty much look the same. You know, the ones I've found that I've called this. By the way, it's a good edible.
Okay.
So if it's a species complex, can you trust that all the species are good edibles?
I think so, because it's well-established European species that's been eaten for a long time. And I mean, whatever lookalikes they're here in North America, it's highly unlikely that they're going to be toxic. And it's been eaten for a long time. These have been eaten since, since McIlvaine wrote his book.
Uh-huh.
So if there was a problem with these, I think we would know.
Great.
Okay, good. All right. Let's look at another.
Just one note about the epithet pretensis. So this species was originally described by Christian Hendrik Persoon, who's a German mycologist. And it was published as Agaricus pretensis, 1801.
Your audio is a little muddy, Jason.
Oh, hold on a minute. Let me see. All right, I'm guessing that's better, right?
Yeah, much better.
So just a note on the name pretensis. So this species was originally described as Agaricus pretensis back in 1801 by Persoon, who's a German mycologist. So the material that he found back in Germany in the early 1800s may have been in a meadow, but over time, as this name was applied to more and more species, presumably it's being applied to things that should be a different species or, can potentially occur in a wider variety of habitats. So, the epithet doesn't always match today's definition of what we call a particular species.
Thank you, Jason.
That's good. Okay. Let me pop up another one here. This one is, I think, Hygrocepe conica, but I'm not positive. This one's a little more colorful with that yellow and white stipe. The gills look like they were white, but they are turning grayish black. I see some black staining. All of this fibrils or striations here on the cap I thought was rather interesting. You can see the staining on the stipe. It's kind of twisted, fibrous, hollow. Again, the gills are pretty broad and waxy looking and feeling. Let's see what other pictures I've got here. Another close-up.
And it looks like they were once all attached, the gills.
Yeah, maybe pulling apart. You can still see some attachment down here. Dave, what would you call that? Subdecurrent?
Seceding.
Seceding, okay.
Well, it's hard to tell when they were attached. Looks like they were kind of notched with a decurrent tooth.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with your characterization here. And this is definitely a group, and it's often referred to as the Hygrocybe group. I think Singeri is another species name that has been applied, but it's a group. And the thing that really characterizes these is the black staining. These things will get, if they remain in situ for long enough, they turn completely black. But the morphology is pretty variable. There's sort of orange, yellow, red, sometimes a little greenish thrown in. This one has these interesting sort of innately fibrils that's not real. I don't know if you'd call that striations or just radial innate fibrils. It's a little hard to tell, but that's something you don't always see with these, but you can see it on this one. Interesting find. These are poisonous, by the way. They're considered, the whole group's considered to be toxic.
Yeah, something commonly known as a witch's cap. That's probably a good, a good clue. It's poisonous.
Well, I think that common name comes from the fact that it's often, this one doesn't really show it, but often the mushrooms in this complex have a really strongly conical cap that's shaped like a witch's hat. This one is sort of flat with just this abrupt umbo. It's a little bit, it's sort of convex, but it has this umbo. This one's a little bit different.
Yeah,
But
it's
as I said
probably
before,
older too. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit older, but they just vary. The way they look is variable. It's the
Okay.
black staining and the yellow. Usually it's a yellow stipe like on this. If you look on, field guides and Mushroom Observer and so forth, and just search like Hygrocybe conica or Hygrocybe, I think it's Singeri or Singeri. It's named after Singer, I guess. You'll see quite a bit of variety, cap colors and colors in general, shapes.
Okay. Very good. All right, I'll put up one more. Got here. Let's see. Let me paste it in. So I think, yeah, slimy waxy cap is the way I pulled this one up. Gliophorus irrigatus. And look at that slime. Whoa. Just covered in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the name for this, as far as I know, up until about a week ago.
Oh, geez. So it changed.
Yeah, I just read something somewhere, I forget where,
Okay.
where it is now proposed that there's like a few of different taxa that look like this in North America, and irrigatus is, the same old story. It's a European name, but the funny thing is, they're finding out more and more of these European things are present in North America. It's just that there's more of a diversity in North America than in Europe. So a lot of times research mycologists who are using DNA are sort of led astray by sequencing something and it's doesn't match the European lookalike, but then later on somebody finds out that the European species is actually present in North America. There seems to be more of that happening. But yeah, that's what I would have called this, irrigatus. And if I found it and put it on Mushroom Observer, I would call it irrigatus because I don't know of any other applicable name at present.
Okay.
It's the dark cap that it's almost black.
Yeah, almost black. It's quite beautiful underneath. Look at the tearing or the levels of small gills, these real tiny ones, then this size, jumps here, and then the full gill. I thought that was very beautiful. And then the way it's tracking down the stipe too. It's As is often
Yep.
the case, the undersides of these things are fascinating.
Cool.
Yeah, they're really nice mushrooms to find.
What was the habitat like, Lila? Was it in a wet place or a dry place?
It was on a slight hillside above a wet area, somewhat wet area. I think this was on one of our forays, I think in 2021. So it was a wet year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think. Let me go back.
I've got Baroni's book open here to the page
Yeah.
with this, and he says he gives a variety of habitat, but he says specifically
Yeah.
also in swampy areas on mosses.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So I guess it does have a tendency to like wet habitat or wet
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah. Just on the terrain here, it looks like it's in, kind of where some water is funneling down this reentrant here from the
Yeah.
terrain up in Wewewanda. So,
I found this species, or well, something that looks just like this species on my property, and in not a particularly wet area, but it was probably wet weather.
yeah. Yeah, it's only one. I only saw this one, and fairly small, I think. It wasn't very big. So that's just about it. I had one more that is some sort of Cupophilus, I think. I'll just throw it up quick, but I didn't have a species guess for this one. We'll look at it real quick.
Maybe it's a Cupophilus. The decurrent gills sort of give it away, and the gills
Yeah.
are fairly widely spaced too. Most of the Cupophilus are like that. Virginia, what is it? Virginianus, Virginia something. Let me see if it's in. Baroni's
Yeah, I think
book.
I might have. Yeah, that's what I put as a possibility in the notes, but I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
that's not. Yeah, but there's a few other white ones too.
Yeah.
There's one that starts with A. There's this thing, Borealis, I think. I think that's the name. They keep going back and forth with whether or not there is such a thing. It's for a while the white ones were all seemed to be Virginias, but then Borealis seemed to make some sort of comeback. I think it's Borealis is the other name. I'm not seeing it here anyplace.
That was quite
okay.
fruiting, Lila.
Yeah, it's a lot of them coming up there. Just looking around, I see some old bed springs here in the background in this woods, wherever it was. I think this might have been from Maine, somewhere. But white pine and different kinds of trees, and a lot of them coming up all over the place. Oh no, this was upstate New York. Okay.
I think sometimes these might have veins between the gills. I'm not sure about that. Baroni doesn't say it, but I seem to remember that. Well, this one doesn't have it though.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Maybe I'm remembering something else. Or it might be Borealis that's supposed to be like that.
All right, that's it for me.
Great. You get such good photos, Lila.
Well,
It's-
sometimes
Show
they're
the
pretty good.
distinctive features.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a nice photo. It's hard to photograph white or really almost white mushrooms. The details tend to get washed out, overexposed.
So
Yeah.
And by the
true.
way, the one that's, and I remember the species name, I think that one is a bigger, more robust fruit bodies. So Virginianus makes sense. Or Virginius.
Virginius. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Lila. So Dave, are you ready to go?
Sure. Yeah, I gave you a whole bunch of links.
Yeah,
and I
so-
tried to narrow it down, but there's like a lot of interesting wax caps.
Yeah, so
And,
do you want to do it in reverse order, or do you want me to
You know what?
start?
Start on the top and do
Okay,
I think that like 2 or 3 of them on top are pretty cool, and then it gets kind of ordinary.
and
And
you
then
said
the
there's
ones that,
one more one?
there's one I just sent that I found a few years ago that I don't know what it is, and it's really pretty cool looking.
So do you want to do that first or save
Yeah,
that
do
for?
that one. So we don't forget about it.
All right,
Yeah, let's
okay.
see. So I'm
So,
pretty sure this is a Cuphophilus. It's got the decurrent gills fairly widely spaced. It was found in my yard in grass. The only trees nearby were there's some maple trees nearby, and no there's no mycorrhizal macrofungi that associate with maple. So I think some of these wax caps, if they are mycorrhizal, they might be like mycorrhizal with moss or something like that. You know what? There is a white pine that's not real far away. But I put this on Mushroom Observer, posted it as Cuphophilus. Nobody disagreed. Nobody had a counter proposal. I haven't found it since. This was a few years ago, maybe 2019, I forget. So all of these wax caps have white spore print, pretty much all of them. All of the Hygrophoracea have white spore print. And then you can see the spores here are not going to be terribly exciting. They're going to be ellipsoid. They're going to be, these look a little small. I don't know if you can, maybe if you can blow that up. But they pretty much, there's not much variation in spore morphology throughout most of these wax caps. They're all smooth, ellipsoid. These look a little small, like maybe they're only up to about 7 microns. It's hard to tell though. I'd have to more carefully. I may have put here. I may have put estimate. Did I put in the observation and estimate on spore dimensions? Sometimes I do that.
let's look and see.
Sometimes I don't because sometimes it just doesn't seem all that useful. With a lot of these wax caps, I don't bother. No, I didn't put it. Yeah, so probably I'm guessing some of these are mycorrhizal with moss.
Uh-huh.
That one's pretty interesting though. Look at the that dark umbo, the
Yeah,
otherwise light color. The gills are really sort of neatly arranged. They're widely spaced, decurrent. So, I think Cuphophilus is a pretty good first, starting point for this.
yeah.
I don't think I saved it. I don't know. I'd have to go through my older stuff and look. It gets to a point where I just end up with so many preserved fungi. But now that it's getting cheaper to sequence, maybe we'll start to move some of them out of my house a little bit more regularly. I mean, at $30 to $40 a shot, quite frankly, I'm not going to go down that slippery slope and drain my retirement, finding out what these mushrooms are. So, but now maybe we're on the brink of, being a little more realistic, financially speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. 60 cents a pop is not going to break your retirement.
No, I can handle that. No, yeah, 60 cents. That's what Steve Russell says it's going to cost him. So, okay, so this thing here, now Igor says he thinks this is not in the Hygrophoracea. He posted on Mushroom Observer. This one did go to Stephen. Steve Russell did sequence this. And I didn't know what it was when I found it. It seemed like it should be in the Hygrophoracea based on morphology. It doesn't really look like Cuphophilus. The gills are not broad enough or decurrent enough. It reminded me of Gliophorus a little bit, but it was not slimy or sticky. It reminded me of that god awful genus name that starts with G. I think I have an observation. It's like there's like 7 syllables or something. I forget how to say it, but it reminded me of that thing, but it's not that. And when this thing was sequenced and blasted, the results were crazy. Some Cuphophilus are from Australia. And we think that the person who identified the thing that they found in Australia might not be a Cuphophyllus. So that's a problem with blasting, especially stuff that's really uncommon. You get this name in the blast and it might be wrong because it's really uncommon thing, or maybe something that's not documented. But somebody, felt they had to put a name on it. So you get information that is, somewhat dubious. But there were things like near the top of the list. I think near the top of the blast list was Lepista nuda,
What?
bluets.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a real great match. It was only, like 85% percent identity. But that was one of the top ones. So this is why Igor voted. I don't know if Igor is here tonight, but he voted against this being in the Hygrophoracea because it just didn't seem to match. There was nothing compelling in the blast that said so.
Right.
So what the heck is this? I don't know. I didn't keep any of them. I sent them all to Steven, and I don't know what he did with them, with the material after it was sequenced. But I know where I found this. I know the exact location. I'll go back there next year. On the other hand, you don't know. This might be one of these weird species that only comes out under every few years under very specific conditions. It was very dry year last year in the summer
Right.
and the early fall, and this was found in a wet area.
Huh.
So yeah, so you tend to get things in wet areas during dry years that you don't ordinarily see. So I'm calling this thing Hygrophoracea, which is the family that is commonly known as waxcaps.
Right. Okay.
And that color is on target.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
next one I was not able to identify either. Now this is a Hygrophorus, I'm pretty sure. I wouldn't call this a Cuphophyllus, although I don't know. I don't know if did I send some of these to Steve? Maybe in the last I sent him a whole bunch of stuff around Thanksgiving, and I'm sure he's really busy. He's getting stuff from people, so many different people, so many different things to do. But so these were growing under small spruce trees on a lake shore. This is a dammed up lake. It's called Lake John. It was a peat bog that was scooped out during World War II. They had a factory that they were smelting iron or something to make ammunition. And after the war, they dammed up the old swamp where they scooped out the peat bog and made a lake. It's a very good place to fish. And there's a lot of interesting mushrooms grow near Lake John. It's on top of a mountain. There's spruce, there's larch, there's great big pines, there's a lot of hardwoods but they're like secondary growth. It was probably all cut down during World War II. But this right near the lake is this sort of barren little piece of shore that a lot of mushrooms grow on. I find a lot of mushrooms in this little patch of land with little spruce trees, and there used to be some little small larch trees there too, but I think they may have died because I didn't see them. But here you see the intervenose gills. See there, you can see the veins between the gills. So I believe the word that is commonly used for that is intervenose, meaning that there's veins connecting gills together under the cap. So I don't know. I made a proposal on Mushroom Observer for a species name, but there were a few things that didn't quite match. And I think it was Puteronus maybe, or something. No, it wasn't Puteronus. No, I didn't even make a proposal. I just put it into the notes, I think. In the notes, I mentioned something. Not Puteronus, that's a white thing. Pustulatus. Yeah, pustulatus and pustulatoides, which basically means it looks like pustulatus. Actually this time I guess I got information from the spores. I'm saying the spores are larger than expected for either of these two species. And the spores were pretty large for a wax cap. 8.5 to 11 is pretty big spores for a wax cap. And I put here that some of them were nearly 13 microns long. So those are pretty big spores. So could it just be, one of these two species with bigger than average spores? Yeah, I suppose that's a possibility. But there were some other things that didn't quite match also. I put something here about some ornamentation or something.
Lacking brown ornamentation on the
Ornamentation on the
stipes.
stripes. Yeah, I'd have to look that up again and see. So these stipes are fairly smooth, I guess. And I guess Pusulatus has like maybe little scales or something. Yeah, pretty cool thing to find. Once again, I mean, the ones that I find most interesting are the ones that I don't know what they are.
Right.
So here's another one. And this was in the fall. Most of my hygrophorus I find in the fall. October into November. What's the date on this one? It's probably late October.
November.
Oh, it's November. Okay, so yeah, kind of late. And this was at high elevation too, about 2,300 feet. And this is a pretty cold area where I found this. But this little patch of land gets a fair amount of sun. There's no big trees there. There's also some big spruce trees, right where the little barren patch ends, and there's actual, mature trees kick in. There's some great big spruce trees there, so that might have something to do with these things being there.
There's considerable variability in the stipes of these.
Yeah, I think they're all the same. I think I may have looked at spores from like two of them that had different shapes. The fruit bodies were shaped, and I think they were pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But they were all growing in exactly the same habitat, and we're talking about an area that's maybe 20 by 15 feet. And they were all in that small area, and very late in the season, when you don't find a great deal of species diversity, especially at this particular elevation where Lake John is. So I figure they're probably all the same.
But it's interesting. Some species are quite variable.
Oh yeah, some species are quite variable. And so you know what? I think I'd have to double check, but I think this might be that god awful name that starts with G.
Let's see.
Let's see what it says here for the proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't even fit on one line.
Oxathom myces nititis.
Yeah, nititis is pretty nice to say, but this genus, and this is like, I think this might be the only species in this genus, or at least, in Northeast North America. It's a little thing with, it's like a gliophorus kind of, it's a little bit slimy. It's got these strongly decurrent gills and almost looks a little like a chanterelle. It's got this hole in the middle of the cap, which makes it look a little bit like a craterellus. I think this thing is usually found in moss. I'm not sure what I said. And sphagnum moss. Yeah, I see it there. So it's not all that uncommon, but it's, except for the color, which makes it kind of stand out. It's easy to overlook because it's small. And a lot of times it's buried in moss. And these spores look pretty good size too. It looks like they might be some of them might be over 10 microns. Let's see what does it say there? Did I put information?
Let's see.
I mean, when somebody asks, I go back and measure. Up to 8.5. That's not that big. Okay. That's typical for wax caps.
Okay.
Yeah. When was that one? Was that like in the summer or was that in the fall? I forget. Oh, in the summer.
August 14th, looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these things you can find in summer or fall.
Cool.
So yet another genus in the Hygrophoracea. Yeah, there's quite a number of them actually. So this was from Victor Gambino, and you can see Emily's name there. I don't know if Emily is here tonight, but Emily found these and identified them
Yes, she
correctly.
is.
as-
Hi, Emily.
Yeah.
Shout
Oh,
out to
Emily. Oh, I
you.
see your name there. Yeah. There you go, Emily. There's your mushrooms. Hygrocebi cantharellus, a very good example. So this isn't a weird name, right? It's not the only um, fungal name where the species name references a genus. There's a few others. In fact, I've got one in one of my links. We're going to see possibly Hygrophorus russula, which is another example of a species name referencing a genus. But these were called, because of the shape. They're shaped a little bit like chanterelles, or actually shaped a little bit more, maybe like Craterellus. But Craterellus used to be in they all used to be Cantharellus
Right.
years back. So Hygrocebi Cantharellus, and I think these are usually in damp or mossy kind of ground. I'm not sure about that. Let's see what Baroni says. He's probably got this one. It's a pretty common species. When you see it, you know it though, generally. Yeah, he's got on the ground, on mosses, on rich humus, on decaying log, in bogs, under hardwoods, or conifers. So lots of
Wherever.
different, wherever. Yeah, that's a cool thing to find. It looks nice. It's a very nice looking mushroom. And okay, so I guess we're getting now into one of, here's one of the more common wax caps. I would call this Miniata at first, okay, and then I would study it, and then I would say, I don't know, because there's just a lot of these small red wax caps. And did I call this thing Miniata? I forget. Or did I say maybe it's Miniata? What does it say? Oh, it's radii. Okay, this one was sequenced, I think, and that's why we know it's radii. Radii typically has decurrent gills, and I think these gills are just pretty broadly attached. And radii is supposed to smell like honey, and the radii that I've been finding, it doesn't smell like anything. Jean Lodge, she knows radii very well. She's studied radii, and she says it smells like honey or like garbage. So seems to be a lot of ground in between those two odors, but these didn't smell like anything. And the gills are really not decurrent at all. They're pretty much adnate, I guess you would call these, just broadly attached. So if I found these, I would look at them and say, okay, my first guess would be Miniata, but they were sequenced, and the sequence pointed toward radii. Now I propose here only as promising. I didn't say that's that's what it is. So I'm leaving a little space here for sort of a little bit of doubt that this is the actual same thing as radii. And there you go. I mean, see what I mean about the spores? They always look like that. They're ellipsoid. Maybe some of them are a little bit irregular. Maybe some of them are a little broader on one end or pinched in a little bit in the middle. But they're all like this, 7 to 10 microns, by 4 to 6 or 5 to 6 or whatever. They're all like that, for the most part, except for that one Hygrophorus, that was kind of interesting, up to 13 microns. So radii, which I put this one in because it was sequenced, right?
Right.
So that's notice Mycota. That's Stephen. He's the one who proposed, and he only proposed it as promising. So he's expressing a bit of doubt. He's calling it radii IN01, so it's like it's at least related to radii. It was a good find, and I was a little surprised by what it came back as. I think this is Puteronus.
You've
Oh,
got,
Trisodon. I'm sorry. Yeah, Trisodon. This is the one that has the orange flakes near the apex of the stalk. And sometimes it smells weird. Um, but there's a close-up coming up here. You can sort of see it here. It's more or less a white with yellow sort of highlights. But you see the apex of the stalk here? Look at these little golden granules. Boy, that really gives this one away.
It's a good
This
photo.
Trisodon. Yeah, well, it's meant to show that particular trait because that's the thing that really gives this one away. Usually under conifers, it's a late season. A lot of these hygrophorus are late season mushrooms, October, November. So I don't know when this one was found. I'm going to guess maybe October 25th. I'll guess. So let's see. What does it say?
4 days off,
October
Dave.
29. Okay, so pretty close. Okay.
And are those scabers? Will they wipe away or?
I haven't really tried to wipe them off. They probably do wipe off. I don't think they're like scabers. Scabers are those like little amalgamations of hairs that are really stuck pretty, they're adnate on the stalk. They don't come off too easily. But you know what? Look on what part of the stalk here, maybe where I handled it. You can see where it's
Yep.
where Mike's pointing there. You can see it looks like some got rubbed off there. So I'm going to say probably these rub off pretty easily.
Cool. Thanks.
Sure. And it's got the decurrent gills. So you can see where there's like room for confusion between Cuphophilus and Hygrophorus. Cuphophilus mushrooms are typically, the context is not as firm. And they're not as large as Hygrophorus for the most part.
Cool.
Also, Hygrophorus, like I said, tend to be really late season species. Although I have found Cuphophilus pratensis in November a few times. So
They don't pay attention to the calendar.
no. And a lot of field guides will try to, like Bill Russell's field guide, which is a nice beginner's field guide for somebody who's just getting started, mushrooms in Pennsylvania. He's got, 4 kinds of mushrooms: spring, fall, summer, and winter. But the mushrooms don't, they don't follow. So there are some that do. Okay, you only find morels in spring. Unless if you go to this reservoir in Israel where these morels grow every month, is from what I understand. I've never been there. Or if you go out west and pick fire morels, you can pick them all the way up until the end of September at high elevation. But typically, yeah. Anyway, so I think this is another one of these Hygroscope conica things that turns black. I think that's what this is. This one I think was found. Yeah, there we are. You see it's blackening on the gills, and you can see some of it on the stipe. So this is what Lila was showing before. Probably it's not the same species. It's very closely related. And you can see here where the gills here have not yet seceded. Maybe if you can zoom on that, let's see if we can see the gill attachment. See if you can do a. You know what? They're starting to secede. So they're probably not all that broadly attached to begin with. But it's one of these blackening hygrocybes. And this one also does not have the witch's hat shape. So this one looks an awful lot like Lila's actually.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. I think that this one was this year, 2022, in the end of September. And here we go. There's the spores. Let's see. Do these spores look a whole lot different than the other spores we've been looking at? Well, probably not. The Q might, if you can blow that up, let's have a look. The Q might be a
This
little
is as
small.
big as I can get it.
Oh, it's not blowing up. I wonder why.
Mike, what happens
may
if you
have-
click on the show original image?
Show original image. Yeah, you have to click that first. Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Lola. Yeah, that'll do it. And then you now I think if you click again, Yeah, you can see good old, these are a little smaller and it looks like the Q is a little smaller on these, meaning the ratio of the length to the width is a smaller ratio than some of the other spores we've seen. So it looks like at least some of them are what we would call maybe broadly ellipsoid. So these are ellipsoid to broadly ellipsoid, but you can get fooled by that too. If the spore is not aligned correctly, like if it's aligned at an angle, which is hard to tell unless you have a really good microscope, the Q ratio will appear to be smaller than it really is, because the width will be exaggerated by the way the spore is positioned. So that might be going on with some of these. Hard to say, but I pretty much was able to put a name on this without appealing to spore morphology, which I rarely do anyway with wax caps. Okay. Well, do we have any others? Do you want to keep
Yeah,
looking? I've got
here.
more. Okay. Here's Miniata, or at least what I would call Miniata. Miniata is probably a group. This was in my yard. These come out every year in this mossy area at the end of my driveway. And the gill attachment is kind of interesting for these. I don't think Miniata is supposed to be with these deeply notched gills. But I couldn't come up with any better proposal for a name for these. And they're nicely colored. You know, if you think back to that reedii we saw a little while ago, they look, a fair amount the same. These some of these small red or scarlet hygrocybe, I think they're kind of hard to pin down. These were small. I'd say the biggest cap was under 2 inches wide, maybe an inch and a half, something like that. They come out every year I see them, usually in the late summer or maybe in the fall. They're nice to find. They look nice, in the moss.
I don't know why you hunt anywhere else except your yard, Dave.
Well, there are so many great places to look for mushrooms around here. It's really, I'm really in mushroom paradise here, with 30-mile radius of my house. Some days it's really hard to decide where to go. But yes, but it's great being able to get up in the morning, have my coffee and walk outside and, start finding mushrooms. So, and quite a bit of diversity on my property. I think I added up not too long ago. I forget what I came up with. So Punicea is a large red wax cap. So this one's big. These guys are probably 3 inches or more in diameter, and they get bigger than that. I've seen Punicea, with cap diameter maybe over 4 inches. So it's a big one, and it does have the notched gills usually, and like that Miniata that we saw. I mean, it looks sort of like a big Miniata, right? Yellowish gills, broad gills. The gills are really wide. It's big. It's a big mushroom, big red wax cap. So
Dave, can
it's
I
fun
ask
to find it. What's that?
can I ask a question about
Sure.
the radii versus Miniata?
Yes.
Did,
I'm not sure I'll be able to answer though. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. I mean, did you say I know you said you had radii sequenced. Was that
No,
kind
that
of
was the one that we saw was sequenced. And Steve called it reedii. That's what his sequence pointed towards reedii and not towards Miniata. And I'd have to go back look at it myself and blast it. But I'm just going to trust what he put up there because he's good at that stuff.
Yeah, but
yeah, I didn't think this was reedii when I found it. Reedii usually has decurrent gills, and it's supposed to have an odor. So
yeah,
I
like
put
a
it up as
honey.
hygros. honey or sometimes unpleasant, Gene Lodge says. So, I mean, look, this looks almost like that Punicea thing, right? But it's
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
So these red scarlet wax caps they're pretty difficult, and honestly, some of these names, when I apply a name to the small ones like these, it's kind of arbitrary, to be honest with you.
Mm.
I don't know how to get real specific, and I don't know. Did I put this as what level of confidence did I put? Which is going to be more. It's going to be more reflection of what mood I was in. That the other one that the other I just put it as hygroscopy, promising. But the other one, the miniata, did I put that as I may have, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel more confident than other days. I don't know. Oh, that's the Conica. Yeah, so it's a hybrid. See, I put Conica group because that's probably a group.
That was
But
my
anyway,
question.
if you can't find it, that's okay. We can move on.
That was my question with the Reedii versus Miniata. Is that a species complex? Is that a group kind of, or?
Apparently, Reedii and Miniata are not all that closely related. Or because you would see it in a blast result, and that didn't really seem to be coming up. You know what? I'll look at that one again. That's Brandon, right? Who's asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to look at that again. I'm going to go back to that observation and look at and put the sequence into GenBank and see what happens. So this species, Mycena rutulantiformis, was like my nemesis for many years. Every time I found it, I would call it something else. For a while, I brought it in at one nymph and said, "Look, I've got this cool Satharella, one of these pink gilt Satharellas." There's a few of them, and of course, I was wrong. It was Mycena rutulantiformis. And then I think I found it rutulantiformis again and put it on Mushroom Observer and said I thought it was something else. Finally, I found this and I thought, okay, fine. I finally found Mycena rutulantiformis and I know what it is now. Put it up there, and like a day later, Noah Siegel comes on and sorry, that's not what it is. It's a wax cap. It's this pretty uncommon wax cap. I found this in Vermont in mixed woods. Beech, birch, hemlock, maple, lots of things. So hygroscopy purpureofolia. I've never found this again. So it's pretty cool mushroom. It's got nice colors. So I didn't know.
Are any of these hygroscopy, are any of them used for dyeing wool?
No idea. No
Yeah,
idea. There's not much to them. I know that.
Yeah, they're small.
If you were to cook them, they would cook down to
Nothing.
just a little pile of almost nothing. They're
Yeah.
not very substantial. The hygroscopies are not very substantial. The hygrophorus are fairly substantial.
Mhm.
And Cuphophyllus, some of those are a little more substantial. Most of these hygroscopy, even the hygroscopy punicea, which is that great big one, it's not real. It's not real substantial. You might have a great big one, but it's not going to be heavy.
And this has radial fibrils like lilas.
Yeah. This one's not in the Conica group though. I think those are just dark fibrils they're just like that from the get-go. I don't really know. I don't know this species very well. It's the only time I ever found it. Noah knew what it was. And so
those gills are really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, it was really cool to find these. If I see it again, hopefully I'll know what it is. But I haven't seen it. This was at a friend's house, some friends that we visited in Vermont, in northern Vermont. So I always have it in the back of my mind when I'm there, but I haven't found it again. And it's not in Baroni's book.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's pretty uncommon.
That's a beautiful mushroom.
Yeah, it is nice.
Yeah, and that cap, you said it's radially fibrillose, not like wrinkled.
You know, it's a good question because I don't have a definitive answer there.
It doesn't,
Those might be grooves, like shallow, wrinkly grooves.
it doesn't look
I don't
like
know.
that in this photo. Look toward the edge here. See how it's coming out? It's not coming out as ridges.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably, I mean, it might be a little of both, but I think it's
Right.
mainly just radially innately fibrillose.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, it's a nice one. That's why I put it in. Even though it was several years ago I found this, I thought this would be a cool one to show. So there it is. So Humidicutis marginata, there's 3 varieties: concolor, variety marginata, and variety olivaceus, maybe olive something. Because there's one that has like olive tints on the cap. So concolor, which is what I called this one, and I'm not sure if molecular data backs up these varieties as being, phylogenetically distinct. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But concolor has the gills that are pretty much the same color as the cap. That's why it's concolor. So it's pretty much yellow. Now, variety marginata has gills that are really strikingly orange. Now you might say, well, these are kind of orange. Okay, yeah, they're a little bit kind of orange, and that does make me wonder a little bit. But the color all that different in the cap surface. So I think concolor is a good name for these. So that's Humidicutis, yet another genus in Hagrapheraceae. So what characterizes Humidicutis? That's a little tricky to say. They're a little bit bigger than Hygrocebi. They have usually very wide gills. Usually they're very colorful. Like, but you might say, well, so are Hygrocebi, but Hygrocebi typically don't have the really colorful gills. So having said all of this about Humidicutis, I think the next thing we see might be a counterexample to everything I just said.
That thing looks like Entoloma murray.
Oh, a little bit, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it does a little bit. Yeah,
And probably found in similar area.
Woods. This is just in woods, elevate. Murray, that's usually like in mossy areas, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Murray has that really, really strangely abrupt umbo that's like they call it the yellow unicorn or something, right?
Yeah, like elongated umbo, like a finger.
Yes, yes. This doesn't have that. Yeah, this has like, it's more or less conical with a bit of, it's like a sub umbo, if that makes any sense.
That's a neat one too.
It's a neat one. Yeah, Humidicutis are really cool mushrooms to find because they usually are these brightly colored gills that are they're just nice to see. And so this is a Hygrophorus. This was also found out at Lake John. And there's an area where all the trees are larch. And there's several different species of mushroom I find under those larch. And it's sort of a swampy area, it's a damp area. And this Hygrophorus speciosus, I think, is what the name is here. These have a veil. And I think you might be able to, speciosus, you might be able to see the veil on maybe the small one. Yeah, see it's got like a stringy, slimy veil. See how it's breaking apart on the one on the left, and the one on the right, it's still fairly intact. So that veil is not present for very long. You know, as soon as the cap starts to expand, that veil disappears. And it might not even leave much of a remnant on the stalk. Maybe it does for a while. Look at that one, you can hardly see anything. Just a tiny, tiny bit of material left on the stalk. So it's kind of a scarlet cap mushroom with white gills, white spore print. So there's this thing that's got black spores that looks like this. What the heck is that thing? Gomphus, maybe? I forget. I don't want to say anything. I'd have to look up a name. But these are under conifers. I've only ever found them under larch. In fact, this is the only place I've ever found it. Was at Lake John.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a nice one. That's an interesting one. There's Hygrophorus russula. So this is not a bad edible, although some people don't like them because they have kind of a waxy texture. But if you cook them up the right way, they're not bad. They're big, they're robust, the flesh is thick. From the top, it looks like a russula. But when you turn it over and if you cut it, if you start, doing a little analysis on it, you sort of realize this is not a russula. It's very waxy.
The gills are quite close for a hygroscopy.
Hygrophorus.
Hygrophorus.
Gill spacing on Hygrophorus is really variable. You've got, what is it? Subsordidus or sordidus, I think, has really close gills. Some of them have close gills and some of them have gills that are a little more widely spaced. It's Cuphophilus that has the really widely spaced gills. Some of the Hygrophorus too, like that thing that I couldn't put a name on, that gray one we saw before, those gills were fairly widely spaced. But this one you can learn pretty easily just from the color of the cap. And sometimes the stalk has that pinkish flush on it as well. I don't find this every year. Only every few years I find it, usually in oak woods.
Yeah, you can see the pinkish here.
Yeah, they're pretty big. These get to be, maybe 3.5, 4 inches wide sometimes.
So
They're
it
pretty
looks
solid.
like the context of the stipe here is pink with a white overlay.
That might be staining. Let's see it. I should have the WaxCap book with me. Duh. I got some books here and I didn't get that one and put it on the couch here. But let me see. This might be in Baroni's book because it's a pretty distinctive species. People who write field guides really like to put it in.
But easily from a casual observer perspective, you would think, yeah, definitely a russula.
Yeah, until you start to analyze it. Yeah. So if I was to bend the stalk on this, it wouldn't snap like chalk. That would be one of the first things you might notice.
I assume the gills are a little less fragile as well.
Yes. Yeah. They're not brittle like on russula. Most russulas. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Lila, I agree.
Yeah.
From the top, that one on the left, I would think russula before I thought anything else.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where it got its name from. Oh, okay. So here's Humidicutus marginata, same species, different variety. Olivacea, right? Now, I had identified this as Humidicutus marginata, and I didn't know about Olivacea. This was found in Maine, I believe, at one of the nymphs. And then Walt Sturgeon, updated my proposal to variety Olivaceus. It's just, you can barely see this. It's just like a little bit of darkness on the caps and a little bit of green tinge maybe on the stipes. But the other Humidicutus marginata mushrooms, they don't have the dark areas on them. So I don't know. It's pretty subtle. Why is this not just Humidicutus marginata variety marginata. I don't know, maybe it is, but Walt is, he's a really good identifier. So, and this does look a little different, than what I would call, see, I just put it as marginata. I didn't put I did say, oh, look at that. I did. That's what I called it to begin with, hygrocebi margin, because that was the old genus for Humidicutus was hygrocebi. So I guess I did have a clue there.
Yeah, you
I-
started
that-
out with Olivaceae, you switched, and then Walt came in and
See, you know what? I didn't know. I think the thing was I didn't know that there was a Humidicutus marginata variety Olivaceae. And then I don't know. So why is there a difference here? What is Herbert Baker saying? Oh, group. So he's saying, Herbert's saying there's probably more than one species here. So, he's a pretty good identifier, and he does things like study sequences and so forth. So I'm not going to argue with him. If he wants to say there's more than one of these, I'm just going to take his word for it. But Humidicutus are pretty cool looking mushrooms. They're very colorful. Well, here's the counterexample. Humidicutus pura.
Before
Oh,
we
go
get
ahead. I'm
into,
sorry.
before we get into pura, sorry to interrupt.
No,
So
go
are we to understand that hygrocepi, marginata, variations aside, that's a dead name and it's all Humidicutus marginata?
Yeah, it's all Humidicutus now. And is there anything besides Humidicutus marginata? I think there's this thing it's either Humidicutus aurantia, blah, blah, something, or it might be Humidicutus marginata, variety aurantia, blah, blah, I forget. But there is another one also. It's kind of amber colored. But they're mostly colorful. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so it's a good question there, Brandon. Is there a Humidicutus that's not? Well, yes, there is. This next one, Pura, is a Humidicutus, but it's not marginata.
Set you up perfect for that.
Yeah, and this one's also the counterexample to expecting your Humidicutus mushroom to be a very colorful mushroom, because this one is basically completely white. And I didn't know what this was when I first found it. I looked and looked and looked for something to call it. I mean, I thought maybe trichiloma, but the context just wasn't right for trichiloma. Trichilomas are usually, they're kind of fibrous usually, especially the stalks. And I forget where I got this, probably off Michael Quebec. But once I found a resource, that I described Humidicutus pura, then I was like, oh yeah, that's what this is. And it fits really well. And it's got those, waxy cap spores that look like other waxy cap spores. Trichilomas mainly have like subglobose spores, and usually very small. So these guys have ellipsoid spores. I don't know. Did I find any spores in this? I probably did, because I didn't know what it was. Oh, there's
no
nothing there.
photos.
Oh, no spore photos. Did I put any measurements or anything? Sometimes maybe no, I didn't. Oh, you know what it was? I found this before. That was the second time I found this in the same location. The picture is better of this one. It's a nicer mushroom. Oh, wait. Oh, this is the other one. Oh, what did I link it? I must have linked it.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Did I get spores for this one? I probably did, because this was the first one I found, and I really didn't know what it was. And so I had considered trichiloma for a little while, but these spores really, and the context is not like trichiloma. Trichilomas are usually kind of fibrous, especially in the stalk. These spores don't look like trichiloma spores. They look like waxy cap spores, right? They're in that 7 to 10 range, lengthwise. They're ellipsoid. most trichomonospores have a smaller Q. You know, the length and the width are a little closer together. So anyway, this one took me a while, but I think I figured it out. So, and it's like a counterexample too, to what a person's expectation might be for humidicutus.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. And
Is there anything else? That
let's
might be
see.
almost all of them. I sent you a whole bunch. I could have sent even more, but oh, these. this is really cool. Chromacera cyanophylla. So this grows on wood, which is, I was actually kind of surprised to find out this is in the Hygropheraceae. But I just checked this out. See, what I did was I just went to Wikipedia, right, and looked up Hygropheraceae, and Chromacera was in there. And then I think I checked another resource also, and so these are a waxcap. They grow on wood. Look at the cool sort of lilac-colored spores that are gills. I mean, those are really nice, aren't they?
Gorgeous.
This collection was sent to Scott Redhead, who was researching this species at the time. And so I guess they're now in some herbarium, you know, and I guess they were sequenced. He said he was going to get back to me. I think he's in the comments, and he said something like he's going to get back, but then I didn't hear any more. But you know, he's busy. He's a professional mycologist. I was happy just to get any sort of response. And so yeah, so I put these on Mushroom Observer, and then Django Groupmeyers sent me an email because he knew that there was interest in this species at the time. So it's a really nice fruiting. This is an early occurring mushroom, May usually.
Oh,
May, mid to late May. Right on wood. Usually, I think it's conifer wood generally.
let's see, just a minute.
And you know what? I'll look it up because I'm not sure I put what kind of wood it was, but I think they're usually on conifer wood.
another case of, you know, ho-hum sort of cap, but you turn it over and get that lovely lavender surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
but when they get old, that color fades on the gills also, and then they
Okay.
just become kind of a drab yellow, not even as nice a yellow as the cap.
How about the
Let me
gills?
see
Do
if-
they retain their color? The
No,
gill
they
fade as
fade.
well?
Everything fades to a dull yellow, and then they're
Mhm.
kind of boring looking.
Mhm.
So you have to get them when they first come out to see the nice colors.
It's interesting, the base of the stipe has that lilac.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah, look at that. I mean, maybe if you get them young enough that you see even more of that color. I'm not sure. These were some of the more purpley ones that I found.
And Dave,
They're not real substantial. They don't last very long. They fruit, and they're around for a few days and then they're gone.
They look
So,
pretty
you have to-
fragile here.
Yes, they're fragile. They're not very substantial. They do not remain intact very long in situ. So, and they're small. You can see there by the penny. Yeah, I don't see these in they're not in Baroni's book.
And this is pretty well decayed wood.
Yeah, that log has been there. It's probably a great big hemlock log.
and did I see they're pretty striate?
They're a little bit, yes, they're what would you call these particular grooves? Sometimes they'll just say grooved, or shallow grooves. They have like shallow grooves, shallowly striate along the margin. Yeah, it's not like, it's not like looking at at a at a section vaginate amanita, where the striations are really distinct. These are kind of vague, but yes.
Well, I
yes.
was getting,
And I
I was
don't think they're always like that.
yeah, I was thinking kind of like a mycena.
Little
certain
bit, yeah.
mycenas.
Yeah, a little bit like a mycelium. I'm surprised they're not more closely related to mycena. In fact,
Mhm.
now I might just have to try to find a few minutes and do a little checking to see that that is not the case. Because I included these in tonight's discussion because, one or two references I found puts these in the Hygrophoracea. So that makes them wax caps.
Right.
They don't really look much like many of the other things we've seen. And the habitat is definitely different.
Yeah, especially on well-decayed wood like that.
Yeah, right on wood, right on, and not even near the ground. This was a great big log these were on.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool species.
Well, that's the last of the ones you sent me, Dave.
Okay, well, that's enough. Do other people have things?
That's all the people I had who were going to share something. So
Well,
since
okay, go
since
ahead,
we've got a
sorry.
little time, Evan, do you want to show us your split gills? Are you there, Evan? Lila's there.
I'm here. Just wondering if maybe anybody else has been inspired to dredge up some of their photos to share with us. Shihong, maybe.
I was going through mine, and I think all I have is Agrassope cantharulis. That's a good observation.
I don't have anything to share, but I have a question.
Sure.
Is Cortinaris also a kind of webcaps?
Ordinarius type of wax cap?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Dave?
Web cap.
Yeah, web cap.
Web cap, because of the partial veil that's like a spider web. It's stringy.
Okay.
However, there are some Cortinarius that are glyophorous, I guess, on both the cap and the stipe, one or the other or both.
Oh, glutinous ones. Yeah, the glutinous ones. There's Myax something, subgenus Myaxaceum or something like that.
As well as Phlagnaceum.
Phlagmaceum Phlagmaceum has, I think I forget, is it only the cap or only the stalk that's glutinous? Maybe it's only the cap.
Yep, I think Phlagmaceum is just the cap, and Myxaceum is both cap and stipe.
Yeah, and they're pretty slimy too, those Myxaceum. There's a few species that grow around here. There's one in Nine Barrens. Oh, what's that one called? It's kind of this caramel color cap. It's got like a disgusting sounding name too, like
Mucosis.
yes, it's named after mucus, right? Yeah, mucosis, right? Yeah, that's the one.
Not vomitus.
Not
No,
vomitous.
nobody's used that name yet.
So I could share a couple observations of the big one. So this is from West Virginia this last summer.
Nice.
So that's Punicia.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And here's another one. This is an older one. So you can see how the cap pulls up and the gills get ragged.
Yeah, it looks like the gills really lose a lot of their color too.
Yeah.
Because I think they're a little bit tinged at first, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. They're sort of a bright yellow here. If you look at this one, see, they're almost yellow. So this is fairly typical of an older specimen here.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
How about Luke? Luke, you've been quiet. You out there? Do you have something?
That's actually Sue.
Oh, is it Sue? Okay.
And I think she just was turning on recording and ditching out.
Ah, okay.
You know, if you really want, I can email a few more.
Sure, go ahead, Dave.
All right, yeah, give me a minute.
Yeah. Are you back, Evan?
Yep.
Do you want to show your split gills while Dave is hunting up more wax caps?
Sure thing.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Right here.
Oh, those are
oh.
beauties.
Mm-hmm. And of course, from the side. Yeah, I was amazed to find these. They weren't here about a week ago. Then they just seemed to sprout up immediately. Yep. So that's my whopping one delivery right there. That's
Those
that's
are
about
very
it.
nice ones. And I was reading somewhere that this kind of furriness enables it to stay moist longer so it can sporulate for a
Really?
longer time.
Huh. I thought it had to do with maintaining temperature.
It's humidity.
Hmm.
I think it allows it to retain moisture after a while as well, so it can lose the moisture, and then as soon as it's available again, that furriness allows it to revive pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah, that's a cool one, Evan.
Thank you.
I was also reading that there's a case documented of that fruiting inside somebody's sinus cavity, causing a really nasty infection.
Really?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
do not sniff your split gills.
Wow. You think there are photos of that?
You could look it up.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah. Tom Volk also talked about somebody sniffing a puffball one time and it beginning to grow a mycelial network in the person's sinus cavities. But luckily, in that case, it was not not very aggressive. So an antifungal treatment wiped that out pretty quickly.
Wow. Hmm. That's good to hear.
Yeah, somebody had told him you could get high from sniffing the spores of a puffball. And Tom
Really?
Volk's response was, bad idea.
Really? Wow. Oh, it's amazing what people could be tricked into doing these days. I mean, even in my department, I have to deal with people thinking it's a good idea to rinse their mouth with chlorine bleach.
Bah.
Yeah, right?
Hydrogen peroxide, maybe.
Yep. Oof. I was gonna say vigilant.
So I put one in the chat, Mike, if you want to share that.
All right. Give me a second here. There we go.
And I didn't even put a name on this. I'm a little confused by WaxCaps, to be honest with you. I think I put Miniata on this at the time.
These look small to me.
Yep, definitely.
And it looks like red maple. Is that what I saw?
At least a little bit. There was a lot of, this was in Michigan.
Uh-huh.
So there was, what is it? Northern white cedar that they have there, not Atlantic.
And birch and so
That prior photo showed quite a few of them in a line there too. Did you see that?
Yeah,
right
Or-
down here.
Yeah.
I just happened to glance here while getting some of my other ones together. The gills looked like reedy eye, looked like they were subdecurrent and a little bit widely spaced.
certainly widely spaced.
Yeah, sort of subdecurrent, but this could be Miniata. These orange, red, small wax caps they're pretty hard.
Yeah, that's why I asked you earlier on, sequencing. That's how you found out about reedy eye, the one that you found.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, I should keep myself unmuted. Yeah, that's the only way I knew that one. Now I did find reedy eye once, and I called it reedy eye, and I sent it to Fundis, and the sequence said it was reedy eye.
Hmm.
And the reason why I thought it was reedy eye was the widely spaced decurrent gills. But that one was in oak hickory woods.
Right. Yeah, there was almost no oak up there in the UP of Michigan.
Yeah, that's conifer area.
And I remember at the time I was going off of Michael Quebec and Renee LaBouffe, her wax cap things, basically because I was in Canada and I was close to her neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna send in just a minute. I just
Okay.
want to find there's like one more Gliophorus I'm trying to find here. On my one thing I like about Mushroom Observer, it's easy to search stuff. Like especially your own things.
Uh-huh.
And
I see it,
okay,
Brandon.
one more. And you know what? This is enough. I'm just wait, one more. Because there's this one. This one's really
So
is
Brandon
interesting.
shared one more in the chat.
Yeah, I'm coming back in just a second. There's probably I could probably find even more, but this is enough. I've got some Cuphophyllus and Gliophorus here that I just sent.
Oh, this is a nice one, Brandon.
Yeah, I figured fill the time while Dave's getting his email together. I think this
Yeah, I
is
just sent it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
this
this
is
is go ahead.
Hygrospathy cantharulus, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, there's this thing that looks like Hygrospathy cantharulus, and I wonder if this might be, yeah, I forget the name. And I should have my WaxCap book right here. But
So
that
this
might be.
this looks like it's growing in moss in a wet meadow.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
other thing grows oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
meadow is one way to put it. Gigantic swamp is another way to put it. I mean, this was in the swamp of all swamps where, like, I was, I think probably 50 yards away from a tree at this point.
Uh-huh.
I've got it. I got the name. It's in Baroni's book. So here's the thing you want to check. And it might not be right, but I'll tell you what I'm looking at here looks a little bit like this. Hygrospathy Coccineo crenata. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, I would see if this keys out in that direction, because there's a couple of things that sort of look a little different. It's hard to put my finger on. The gills are not real white, usually on Hygrospathy cantharellus. Well, it says orange yellow here, and it's hard, sometimes it's hard to say why, but this might be cantharellus. But just here's a name to check out.
I will say this had ornamentation on the cap, kind of, I don't even know, little dots on the cap that were somewhat interesting.
Okay, I think I've got this spelled right. Yeah, let's see what it says here. I think sometimes that's a trait associated with cantharellus. Yeah, finely silky or scruffy scaly on the cap. And this other one, this one that I just put in the chat, covered with dark brown or blackish brown fibrils and scales, making the cap very dark when young. Yeah, so I don't know. These caps are not particularly dark, but they might not be all that young either. But it's it's something to consider. Let's just see here. Oh, you know what? Both Hygrospathy cantharellus and this other one have big spores. Hygrospathy cantharellus, the spore lengths go up to 12 microns. And this other one, the spore lengths go up to 14 microns. That's pretty big spores for Hygrospathy.
For Hygrospathy, yeah.
Yeah, and both of them are sphagnum moss things. So, well,
Yeah,
the Hygrospathy Coccineo crenata is specifically humus and sphagnum beds in high elevation bogs. So I don't know, if you frequent areas with sphagnum, such as bogs in the Adirondack Mountains, you will run into this small, colorful species.
Yeah,
That's what
Brandon,
comes around.
I would call this a bog before I called it a swamp. You know, a swamp is a forested wetland. So, you know, saying it's in a swamp and there's no trees around doesn't make a lot of sense. And the fact that there's sphagnum, and if there's northern white cedar prefers acidic habitat. So I would think this is an acidic bog, not a swamp.
Heard. Yeah.
So Dave, do you want me to start at the top or the bottom of your list?
I may as well just start at the top. We'll go quickly through them. Some of them, one or two of them are like reruns, but I think these are mostly species we haven't seen yet. I think there are two of them. I think I've got two things here that Lila showed. Okay, this was the thing I mentioned when we were looking at Lila's white Cuphophyllus. That's kind of similar, but it's a little more robust, a little more thick fleshed, and the gills are maybe a little closer. So this is Cuphophyllus. What is it?
Augustifolius.
And Angustifolia. Yeah, so it's pretty similar. It's pretty similar to Virginius. It's got usually a thicker stalk. It's just more or less more robust. This one's not real big. Sometimes they're bigger than this. I think Virginius often has veins between the gills. I'm not sure of that. I think I have a Virginius to show for comparison. I think I have another one of these right after this. Right after this one, I think there's another one that's bigger. Let's see what the next link is. I think it's the same thing, only a bigger one. Yeah, pretty much the same thing. See, they're more robust. Otherwise, pretty similar to Virginius. And I think I probably proposed Virginius for this at first, and then somebody changed it.
Cool.
Yeah, so they're similar. And then there's this other name, Borealis, which I'm not sure what the stat.
And here's Virginius.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about Borealis.
So here's Virginius. So you're going to see here, they look pretty darn similar. And I put this at promising because it's hard to be really, really certain about these white hygrophorus. Now, one thing about Virginius, sometimes it has like these ivory sort of tones. It's that other thing, and Justifolia, whatever it was, that one's like pretty much white. It's like a flat white. This one, especially on the cap on this one, you can see the picture of the cap. It's got like a little bit of like an ivory color to it. And I'm not sure if these gills are intervenose. See, when they used to describe Borealis as a separate species, that was one of the things that would be said, was the intervenose gills. And I'm not sure if you can, even on close-up, if you can see. Looks like they might.
There might be something there. It's a little out of focus here.
Yeah, it's not enlarging well enough. Okay, well, that's that one. That's those two white ones.
Dave, I'm while you're showing that, I'm going back and looking at mine, and I was able to zoom in and see a little bit of that intervenose activity going on in that Virginius.
Yeah, I think that's put into both the descriptions of Virginius and Borealis. And I know for a while those two names were merged, and then people started using the name Borealis again. So I'm not sure what the status is. So this is a Cuphophyllus canescens, I think this thing's called. It's kind of a gray thing.
Yeah, that's what you called it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's one or two things that this can be confused with, and neither one of those things is coming to mind. Otherwise, it's pretty distinctive because of these gray gills and gray cap. So this one doesn't have the really strongly decurrent gills. They're pretty much more or less adnate. This one's, these are intervenose. You can see it here. Right, so those have the veins connecting the gills. At least, yeah, it's a little harder to see because it's shadowy. Look at these spores. These are a little different. These are subglobose to globose. And they're small. That's a little bit different. Okay, so then there's that one. It's a mixed woods, hardwoods, I would say, predominantly. And just for comparison with what we saw before from Lila, here's some pretenses that this may have been in my yard. I don't know where did I say this was found? But these are, I would call these pretenses. You know, they're a little bit different
239
color.
Golf Course Road.
Yeah, that's my house. They're up on my mowed path. So not really any real big trees in the area where these were found. Some smallish trees. There might have been some small oaks starting up in that area. Maybe. But I would call these pretenses. They're pretty robust. Pretenses can get pretty big. And that's one reason why they're like a decent edible, because they're fairly substantial. Okay, so that's them. So we've already seen this species, so I thought it would just be a nice comparison because the color was a little bit different. Here's another Cuphophyllus, subviolaceus. And this is the one that can be confused with canescens. Okay, so now I remember.
Look at the
Subviolus.
intervenose gills here.
Yeah, these are pretty strongly intervenose. You can see even without getting close, you can see that they're pretty strongly veined in between.
Nice.
Yeah, those are nice. It's subviolaceus. It's just a hint of a violet kind of color on the cap. But they are easy to confuse with canescens. So those are the two. Those two are, I think I may have even said at first this might be canescens. And somebody I think probably Herbert Baker made a confident proposal for this species name, which I did not know at the time, subviolaceus. So I learned it.
It's a nice subtle color. I like that.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's nice looking mushroom.
Okay.
And it looks like it's concentrically zonate too.
Little bit. Yeah, it's probably hygraphinous. It probably fades from the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on there.
I noticed that on one that you shared earlier as well, and that's something that I never really noticed in Hygrophoracea before.
Yeah, maybe on some of the Cuphophyllus, I guess. Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to think here. I don't see that on the Hygrocebi. So some Gliophorus. So this was, I believe, from Wells Mills a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there were a whole bunch of these that on that foray. We were finding a lot of them. And this is interesting because we called these Gliophorus laetus. All right. That's what they key out as. Couldn't find any other reasonable name for these. And yet laetus sort of implies yellowish color. And I've got another observation of these, which is the same species as proposed, and they are yellow. Now, these guys, you might think like, well, how come we're not going to call these Cuphophyllus? Look at these nice decurrent gills. The thing that really characterizes Gliophorus is that they are really slimy. They're hard to handle. I mean, the mushroom is either stuck to your finger because it's sticky, or you can't pick it up because it's so slimy. There seems to be no middle ground for those two conditions. So those were in moss, all through the damp moss and the cedar woods at Wells Mills that day. There were a lot of them. And the next one, I think I've got another gliophorus layout. Is this one from 239? Because I find this in my yard a lot, and the neighbor's yard, like 2 steps over.
No,
my
this
property.
is Pinchot,
Oh, it's
is it?
okay. It's where, same place where I found that thing that I don't know if it was a wax cap, but anyway. So I'm calling these the same thing. Now, I mean, the color certainly is a lot different. But once again, these are sticky, slimy. They're either stuck to your finger or you can't pick them up at all. There seems to be no middle ground.
So
And-
it's that characteristic rather than the color.
Yeah, well, it's that characteristic that puts you in genus Gliophorus. So those things that Lila showed earlier, those Gliophorus irrigatus, that was Gliophorus, right? Irrigatus? Yeah.
Yes, the black one. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. You can hardly pick them up. They're so slimy.
So this one wasn't growing out of moss though, right? This is growing out of the leaf litter, hard.
What is there a picture there in situ? Yeah, it looks like those are just growing in a leafy area.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Usually I find these in moss. But sometimes on like rather hard ground, on like when I find them on my property, it's in a very well-drained area that just happens to it's like a lawn that has moss on it. So I don't see any moss here in that picture. So, and here's another Gliophorus. This is it Pistaceous? I don't know how to say this. Cetaceous.
Is it a sinus maybe?
Yeah, what Lila said. Right. Thank you. Yet they're also, and this is the one I think they call the parrot mushroom. It's a lot of times it has green color on it, but not always. These have kind of dark green on them. The gills are usually kind of yellow. The color is so variable on this species. These were kind of dark olive colored. You can find bright green ones. You can find yellow ones. Sometimes they fade. The gills are not particularly broadly attached on these two. I'm not sure if that is a consistent trait.
You've got some cross veining going on here too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And look
Let's
at all the
see.
debris that's stuck everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, stuff sticks to these. Like, yeah, let's see what, these are in Baroni's book. Let's see what he says.
So Psittacidae is the family for parrots. It says that Psittacinus is parrot-like.
Yeah.
Contrasting
that's why it's
coloration.
parrot. Okay, so he's got, for the gills, bluntly attached. I guess, to me, it looks like they're kind of adnexed, tapered, up to the attachment. But I guess, what, if you look closely on the right, so it looks like the actual attachment is kind of blunt. Okay. Yeah. So what does he say about the color? Start first from margin inward. Oh, so this one does fade to center to pale reddish brown, pinkish flesh, yellow ochre, yellow or olivaceous orange. There's all kind of colors associated with this species. I don't find it very often. When you do find it, though, it kind of jumps out at you, especially after you, pick it, because it's a Gliophorus. It's hard to pick. You reach down and try to grab one, and it's on the ground before you know it. It slips right out of your hand.
Dave,
Go ahead.
Is that veil material at the
No, there's no veil on these. I don't think so, at least. I don't think anything other than Hygrophorus have veils. There's some hygrophorus that have veils. Oh, I forgot to put in Hygrophorus fuligineus. Oh, you know what? I thought I had that one in my original. Oh, and by the way,
You did.
that Cuphlophilus canescens and Cuphlophilus subviolaceus. I knew there was another one that looks like them. It's Cuphlophilus lacmus. That's yet another one that's pretty similar. So there's 3 species that are hard to tell apart. So this, I don't know what this is. A Gliophorus, I guess. I think that's what I proposed. I mean, maybe it's just a really red Laetus, but it doesn't really look like Laetus. So what do we have? Oh, it's a Hygrosabe. Minutula? So there's just a lot of kind of disagreement on this thing.
So Herbert Baker is
Yeah,
pretty.
he proposed Hygrosabe glutinipes variety rubra, and then his confidence is negative 28%. So he's saying he made that post to say that's not what it is. So, yeah, I don't know what this is. Gliophorus minutulus. So it looks like that species name on MO is written in light print. So apparently there's another name for that. If you click on the actual name there, Gliophorus minutulus, you'll get more information and probably an updated name if you just follow maybe a couple of links. So where did I find this thing anyway? What does it say? Yeah, we'll come back. So it's gonna give. Oh, it's Hygros. Oh, it is a Hygrosabe. Okay, so this thing is a Hygrosabe. Why? I'm not really sure. I imagine it was pretty slimy. That's why I said Gliophorus. Was
Well,
this
am I
fun?
am I misunderstanding that sequence of identification that Baker is suggesting that the name is Gliophorus?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? You're right, Brandon. That's what he's doing. First, he proposed Gliophorus, and with that gluten, and then he changed it. He says, no, this is Gliophorus minutulus, but apparently Gliophorus minutulus is actually currently housed in genus Hygrosabe.
Okay.
But you know what? I just read a very interesting discussion on MO with Alfredo Justo discussing whether it should be Pycnoporus cinnaberinus or Trametes cinnaberina. And according to what Alfredo says, is that even though the rules of taxonomy say there's supposed to be one correct name, it is acceptable to have disagreement on generic placement.
Interesting.
So sometimes there's actually what seems to be two correct names, but it's not really two correct names because it's the same species epithet.
Yep.
But the genus is listed different because there's not agreement on how to place it into a phylogenetic tree. So apparently, I think that might be what's going on with this one. I mean, this looks like a Gliophorus to me. Look at the stalk is really, you can see it's really glutinous. So I think I found this on my property actually. Is it 239?
Varden
No.
Conservation Area.
Oh, okay. That was out in the northeast corner of Pennsylvania, up in Pike County, I believe. I think that's where that is. Yeah, difficult to handle with fingers due to slimy, slippery coating. So, I mean, that's why I thought, well, that's why somebody else has it, put it in Gliophorus also. But now it's a Hygrosabe. So,
Yeah, which
kind
has
of
a morphological detail, something that you can see and feel is
yeah,
more important.
it would be unfortunate if it's not, if it doesn't belong in Gliophorus because it looks like it should be.
Right. So, the genetic housing of something is not as important as being able to identify it in the field, What do
Oh,
they
yeah.
say?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. See, so it might be that the genus is not settled for this. I don't
Mhm.
know. I haven't really researched. Do you have time for one more? Do you want to see one more? Because there's one really cool one that I just, I'll send it in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be the last. I promise, this is the last one. This one's really cool though. I mean, you have to see this thing. It'll take me like 2 minutes.
And
it's-
while Dave is getting that together, this is a good time to throw out ideas for March for our taxonomy sessions. If anyone has any suggestions on topics that you would like to cover outside of just general, user shares.
Yeah, I pretty much go along with whatever anybody wants to do. I've got a lot of observations. I could probably cover any base you want.
At least everyone that's
There
here
it is. I found it.
start thinking about that going into next week, because that's when we actually need them.
Right. Okay, here it comes. This last
Okay.
one. You really have to see this thing. It's Did it come in yet, Mike?
Not yet.
Let me make sure I actually sent it.
I see it. It went through on my end.
All right. Maybe it just needs to. You want to share it, Jason?
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh. I just heard a ping here.
I got it.
Great.
Oh, okay. So this is Hygrophorus fuligineus. And if you zoom in on the second photo, this is the sooty gray waxcap. It's a big, robust, thick fleshed thing. It's pretty meaty. It's edible. It's very slimy. I find as an edible, the slime is a little bit difficult to deal with, but one of our mushroom club members, it is her favorite mushroom to eat. I have to make it a point to remember to tell her when these things are going to be out. She loves them. And I once upon a time ran into a guy, this was a long time ago, 30 years ago. I was picking armillaria and I ran into this guy who had a bucket full of these and he said it was the only mushroom that he picked to eat. And he said he put them in spaghetti sauce. But if you go back to that second photo and zoom in on it, you can't
Is
see
that
it
a
until you
veil?
zoom it. Yes, that is a veil that's made out of slime. That veil is just slime. And it's not, that veil's not intact for very long.
You can
Can
kind
you
of see
see
it.
it here? You can see through it, right?
Is that like a hole
That's-
right there?
Is there a hole?
Yeah,
There's
that's
a
what it
little
looks
hole
like.
right there.
Yeah.
You see a little hole. Yeah.
And on
so
the
this
right
mushroom-
side, around the margin of the cap,
Oh, it's starting to pull away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So this whole mushroom is covered in this slime, like those Cortinarius myaxaceum that we're talking about before. Very similar to that. When they expand, the gills don't usually have a lot of slime on them. The rest of the mushroom has a lot of slime on it. They're big, they're meaty, they grow under. I've only ever seen them under white pine, and they're a late occurring mushroom. You probably won't see them until around the end of October around here. And more likely you're going to find them in first or second week of November. These were November 14. 2021, I forget, that may have been kind of a warm November. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted you to see that crazy veil on these. So these are really slimy. If you pick these, your fingers get really slimy and sticky.
Is there
They're
like
big.
a slime annulus that this thing leaves?
Sort of. I mean, basically the entire stem is slimy. So up near where that veil collapses onto the stipe, it's a little thicker right there.
Mhm.
So Dave, you used
Maybe on one of the bigger ones.
use the
Excuse me,
word
go ahead.
glutinous. Is that kind of synonymous with viscid, or are there subtle differences?
Viscid or glutinous, or slimy. Well, slimy is kind of a generic term, I would say viscid and glutinous is viscid is more oily and glutinous is more sticky.
Hmm.
I think that's the distinction there. You know what? Let me see what Baroni says in his index. Not index, a glossary. I think glutinous basically is sticky and viscid is oily. Glutinous, having a thick layer of mucus-like sticky material that pulls away from the surface in long strands. Oh, see viscid.
Ah,
Okay, so that's for comparison, I'm pretty sure is why. Viscid, slippery to the touch when wet, from a thin mucus layer, becoming sticky when losing moisture. So, boy, Baroni is not distinguishing very much at all between those two words. But I would think viscid is a little more oily than glutinous.
cool. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. Oh, that's it. I mean, I've got more, but that's enough.
well, this ended up being a very interesting evening.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for
everyone.
sharing, David.
Oh, you're welcome. Yep. Thanks for listening. So, so next week I'll have some things that I have no idea what they are. That I found in February.
And as a reminder to everybody else, bring your February finds next week. And that's what we're going to be focusing on.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us. Have a
See
good
you,
night,
everybody.
everybody.